Hi everyone. I've been looking at all the papers that I've collected over the last couple of weeks, and I thought it's time to get cracking and do something with them and just get some ephemera made. So I've decided I'm going to make some mini booklets, and I had left over some of these lovely paper samples that I'd got, gosh, when I still had my shop. I'd always liked them, but they were always quite tiny to do something with, so I thought, well, I might be able to use some of those. Then when I have leftover paint from various projects, I just take some white paper and just put color on. So I've got some of that. I have some offcuts of coffee and tea stained paper, little bits and pieces. And then I have a piece of magazine. This is from a Daphne's diary that I cut out. I just love the sort of seashore feel there. And I thought that the sort of watery colors of this might work well with some other things. So shall we go on a journey? Let's see what happens. I have made some others, so I will show you those at the end. So to begin with, I'm never very precise in how I do it. I kind of eyeball things. So I'm wanting to use this paper. It's not quite the same height as the others, but I'm just literally going to do that and fold over and give it a tear. I just figure that for me, I prefer the handmade look rather than it being too precise. I mean, I could whip out my guillotine if I wanted to. So that is a sort of a watery color insert, which I think would be quite nice for an inside cover there. Then I have some of this lovely greeny color paper. So maybe what I'll do is, let me just see, I could probably get maybe 2 of these out. Here, let's just see. Yeah, not quite. But okay, if I fold this paper in half, I'll get some slightly shorter pages, but I'll get the colors that I want. And I'm just going to again do a rip through this and tear this in half here as well. Alright, so now I've got a few pieces of colored paper that I can insert in between my tea and coffee stand papers, and I think that I'll probably only need to have a few pages, but never mind, let's see how we go. So let's use some of these. I like the calendar bits at the bottom because I feel that that is something that's fairly interesting, so I'm going to need to tear off a little bit here, about halfway between this line, and let's see if I can do it all together. That will make life a lot easier. Right, there we go. Don't throw your strips away, they're always good for collage. Right, so the next thing is we're going to just eyeball this, and I'm going to just tear that over here. Right, so as I say, keep your scraps because they're always useful for other collage things. I like the little fine print that they've got on the calendar pieces here, because if you're making things like faux tickets, those are quite nice to put on there just to add a bit of interest. So I'm going to fold those pages in half, and then I'm going to interleaf them with some of my colored pages. Let's see what it looks like by the time we've finished. So we will have some blank journal spots, and we will have some which have been dyed and some which have got color. Alright, so I've got quite a nice selection of papers here. We're going to slide nice and easily into this magazine page, and it's a lovely way to use up old pieces of magazine, you know, especially the bits that you don't think are great. I mean, I would imagine this going in a tuck spot. I can always stick a piece of plain paper or card there, but I love this sort of sort of feel here, and I am busy with a journal with birds, so I think that will be quite nice. I'm taking a piece of embroidery thread because it's got color in it, and I'm using a contrasting color. So unlike all the colors that are in the backgrounds here, which are blues and things, I'm actually going to be using some of this nice sort of lilac-y color, and I'm just going to literally stitch through from the one side. I'm only doing 2 little stitches, so I'm just going to eyeball and make sure that it's more or less in the middle. Push through to the other side. You want to have quite a nice strong needle for this, and something preferably that has a fairly large eye. And I don't even know if you can see that here. I'm trying to get this into focus for you. Probably won't do it, but you want a nice large eye to be able to thread your thread through. Okay, so now I'm going to take my threads. I'm going to make sure that they're more or less the same length. Oh, one's not come through properly. Okay, let me redo this. Alright, so I'm just going to re-thread this because one of the threads has obviously pulled sideways and it's not come through properly, and it's just going to look ugly. Right, so let's try this again. Okay, so I've re-threaded the needle. I'm just going to push that through there and then find the spot that it was coming through previously and pull that through. Now what I want to do is to make sure that my threads get nicely and firmly tied in the middle, and I'm just going to do a little knot for that. That's the problem thread there. That was one that was slightly shorter than the others. Anyway, it doesn't matter, they're threaded now. So don't make it too tight, because if you add stuff into the center of your journal, then you're going to find that you don't have enough sort of wiggle room, for want of a better word, to describe it. So what I mean by that is that if you put something that's thick in between the pages, if they're very tightly stitched together, they're not going to open nicely while you're working. So there I have the basis of a very nice little journal, and from that I could do a whole lot of different things. So let me now show you some of the things that I've been working on to give you some ideas, and I'll show you some of the things that I've used along the way. So just starting off with the very basics, this was a piece of what they call paste grain paper, where I've taken a bit of wallpaper paste and mixed it with acrylics and then bagged that on using a plastic bag and made a little booklet, also using offcuts. So I've done a couple of these. This one I then added some washi tape to, so you can see we're just starting with the very basics and just adding a little bit of detail. Moving along, also using that same sort of background, I've just added a wider washi tape that's got a sentiment on there. Enjoy the little things in life. And then I had some of this lovely sort of almost iridescent rose paper. It was originally scented. It was absolutely gorgeous. And I've taken some fancy edge scissors and I've cut the edges there and used some glitter washi tape. And to me, that little booklet on its own is actually quite nice, just for a little tuck spot of some sort. Then with this one, I've let the back cover be slightly longer than the front cover, just so that I can see the pages, because I quite like that look. But I have put some of that glitter washi tape at the back, and I've put some on the front, different one. And what I did here was I took some of my metallic watercolors, which are these, and all I did was just brush a little bit of color on each page in a different spot. I didn't want to ink them because I felt the pink was such a gentle color that I thought if I just do a little bit of the watercolor, that would actually add quite a nice detail. Right, then if we move on to these papers on the outside covers here was actually Canson pastel paper, and again I've used a bit of washi tape here, and I took one of my tabs and I just glued it flat there so that I could use it. And this one has a mixture of coffee papers and tea papers inside, but it ties up quite nicely with the lettering on the outside there. And then this one here with the washi tape on the outside, I'd simply staple this together, use the washi tape to cover it, and again took my watercolors and just simply went round the edges just to add a little bit of detail. I know everybody sort of uses their ink pads and things, but sometimes a bit of color is nicer than having a lot of ink. And then for this little one, again using my Canson pastel paper, I've simply just stitched it together, but I also then wrapped some thread all the way around so that I could tie on that little molded leaf, which I'm really quite fond of. And then this one has just got a plain cover, but the inside I'd taken a stencil with some silver paint and I'd done some sort of mottled designs on there, and I quite like that. It's a little bit different. Let's see. Here's another one along the same lines using that same stencil, but just nice for a little tuck spot. You can easily pop that into something. This one was just a stapled together cover where I had simply flat sheets of paper, and again I've always just taken, as I said to you earlier, my background sheets when I'm doing a project that have got a bit of color. These were punched out book pages that I'd colored, and then you made them into little flower embellishments. So I've got quite a lot of those that I made. I used to have a lot more, but I've used such a lot over the years. And then this little booklet, again a washi tape cover, it is stitched as well. And then for this one I took a tracing wheel and I just went round the edges to give that kind of stitched look, and I went over the edge with a gold pencil crayon. And I do like to have those sort of things as edges as well. It's very soft and gentle as opposed to the hard sort of colours that you often get with the stamp pads. I took some different stamps, so I've got this set of very teeny weeny little stamps here that push out, and I, on each page here, stamped a little image, and I used one of my letter stencils just to type some letters, and I used bits of washi tape in between. So you can see now I'm putting a little bit more detail into these, but these are all separate little pages that have been stitched together. They're not folded pages, and I'm really quite happy with this little one. I'm busy with another gardening journal, so this one will go into that as well. So very happy with that. Okay, so that's that one step up. And then I had more of this. This was a handmade Indian paper that had gold threads in. These were just little bits of a brochure that I'd punched out with using one of my square punches. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but you can get them like that. They're quite nice. They're almost like little mini mosaic tiles. And again, I've just left the inside of that fairly plain. And this one too, I've just done a plain little booklet. The inside I've taken a green pencil crayon, so one like this, just to draw the outside lines. I'm going to leave that plain. And then this cover here is not washi tape. It was one of these Indian papers that I had that I just glued on with a glue stick. Then I took another piece of my Indian paper, and this is a fold over notebook, and I used this one just to wrap around. I'm happy that that paper folds over there, and I've just glued that little bit of Indian paper on the front with one of my embellishments. And then these little ones are sort of 3D booklets, and you just untie them like that, and then you've got your little booklet inside. Now I'm going to show you quickly how to actually make up this cover, because it is actually quite a nice technique. So I've done that one like that, and then I've done these other ones here as well using that same principle. And so let me just show you what I've done to create that effect. So I've got a piece of paper as a cardboard outside. I've stitched my scrap papers on the inside, and for this one I've got a little flap that goes over, but I'm actually going to have the larger flap I think underneath. Alright, and for this I'm going to use my crocodile. So what I've done is I've placed a circle on top of my piece of card on the cover, and I've taken my crocodile using the smallest hole, and I've lined it up and punched a hole through. So you can see now that I actually have the two holes in place. Now I'm going to take a split pin, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, I know some of you refer to these as brads. This is a split pin which will open out like wings on the other side, and I'm going to push that through the circle. I'm not worried about a ring enforcement here, because this cardboard, being from a paint sample, is quite a nice sturdy size. And I'm just going to open that out like that. And what I'm going to do next is to simply take my piece of embroidery thread. I've taken 3 strands out of the 6, and I'm going to wrap it around the split pin, and I'm just going to tie it once like that, so it has a little bit of a tail. And then if I wanted now to close my little book up, I'm just going to simply take that around once just to tie it. And I think that that makes quite a nice closure. You could add little beads onto the ends here if you wanted to. You could add any sort of like little dingle dangles, but I think that that is really nice. And if you have a look at some of these other ones that I've made, it just adds a different texture. You could use all kinds of different twines to do that. You could wrap this around more than one time, but I think really as a way of closing a little book, pretty easy whatever your occasion. So nice little books for tuck spots and things. Nice way to use up scraps and ephemera. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.